Hello lovely beaders. Welcome back to my channel. Today I would like to show you another piece of jewelry made using the CRAW technique. A pendant made from simple eye shapes. You can use this eye shape to make earrings, or if you make more you can sew them together to make a nice bracelet. In this video I will try to clearly show and explain how to make a basic cube. But if you feel that this is not enough for you, go to my video number 48 and watch the longer guide on this technique at the beginning of the video. Start the basic cube with 4 pieces of seed beads. Pull the beads down your thread and put a double knot to make a circle with the beads. This circle will be your bottom circle. Step out from the first bead. String 3 pieces of seed beads and go through the bead from the bottom circle to form the first side circle with the beads. Go through the second bead from your bottom circle. String 2 pieces of seed beads and go through the bead from your first side and the bead from the bottom circle. Go through the next bead from your bottom circle. String 2 pieces of seed beads and go through the bead from your second side and the bead from the bottom circle. Go through the last bead from your bottom circle and the bead from your first circle. String 1 piece of seed bead and go through the bead from your third side, the bead from the bottom circle and the bead from the first side. The last step is to reinforce the top of the cube by going through the beads. I will talk more about this last step a little later in the video. You have one finished cube. You will need in total of 9 cubes for the first part of the eye. I will speed up the video to not bore you with the repeated parts of the beading. Don't forget that you can slow it down by clicking on the cogwheel icon and selecting the speed you want. If you slow down the video you might see that I don't always reinforce the top of the cube. The reason is simple. If I feel the beads are tight enough and the cube is sturdy, I don't think this step is needed. But if you're new to this technique, it's better not to skip it. This step helps the beads stay in place and shows their final position in the cube. It also makes the whole cube stronger, especially if your tension is a bit loose. Once you've practiced more and your tension gets tighter, you'll probably notice that you don't need to do this step for every cube. This technique is so simple and can be done automatically once you learn and become experienced in the process. You won't even notice and the cubes will start to multiply, the tube will start to get longer. This was my 9th cube. The top circle of this one needs to be properly reinforced. The next cube will not start from this circle and therefore this beads will be visible and must stay in place. We don't start our next cube from the top of the tube, but from a side circle of the last cube. In that way the new tube will be perpendicular to this one. It will look like we are making the letter L. So you need to change your perspective and not consider the circle on top as the bottom circle, but the one on one side. You need to make the new cube the same way as before, only the location of your bottom circle is changed. When you change direction with a CRAW tube, it can happen that your beading direction changes as well. If this is confusing and uncomfortable for you, you can go through the beads in the last cube until you find your own way and you will be in your own rhythm. But keep in mind that only your first cube will be beaded in the other direction, because when you string the last bead and go up to reinforce the top circle, you can go in the other way and your correct beading direction will return. You can see that the new tube will be perpendicular. And you can see that I am changing directions and I find my own beading direction. It was only one cube that was beaded in the other direction. Let me talk a little bit about the counting and the lengths of the second tube. Both sides of the eye shape needs to have the same lengths. The first tube has 9 cubes, so the second tube needs to have 9 cubes as well. But both cubes from the end of the first tube will be shared. And we need a cube for closing the 2 tubes. So if the second tubes need 9 cubes as well as the first, but we have 2 shared cubes and 1 for the closing, we will need to bead only 6 cubes for the second tube. I will speed up the video with the repeated steps of the beading. Now that we have some time, I'll take the opportunity to ask you that if you enjoyed this video and find value in the content I share, please consider subscribing to the channel and giving this video a like. My channel and the knowledge I share are completely free, but to keep it going and continue providing valuable content, I need your support. Your engagement helps the channel grow and reach more people, so thank you for being a part of this journey. You can also help by buying me a coffee, or buying a tutorial or a jewelry from me. You can find the links in the description. Thanks for all the help. In the video number 48, I showed you how to make a bezel with a CRAW tube by sewing the 2 ends of the tube together with a final cube. In this video I will show you how to make the eye shape by sewing the end of the second tube to the side of the first tube with the last cube. This is the last cube for the second tube. Now we need to close the 2 tubes in the eye shape. But first let's count again. We have the first cube for the first tube, the last cube for the first tube, and 6 cubes for the second tube. We have in total of 8 cubes, and we need to close the shape with the last cube. Let's hide the end of the thread in the tube and cut it so that it doesn't distract us. Make sure that your tubes are not twisted and the beads that you will use to close the shape are in good place. Lead the thread to the bead in the bottom circle that is pointing inside of the L shape. It will be easier to see the beading if you start with the inner circle of the closing. For the first circle of your closing cube you have 2 beads already in place. The bead from the bottom circle and the bead from the first tube. You need to use that circle from the first tube that I just show you. Pick up 1 bead and go through the bead from the first tube. Pick up another bead and go through the bead from the bottom circle. And you have the first circle of your closing cube. Go through the next bead from the bottom circle. Now you have 3 beads in place for this circle, so you would need 1 last bead. Pick up 1 bead and go through the bead from the first tube, the first side bead and the bottom circle bead. Go through the next bead from the bottom circle. You have 3 beads in place for this circle too. Pick up 1 bead and go through the bead from the first tube, the bead from the second side and the bottom circle bead. The beads from the last side are all in place, you just need to reinforce them. And that's it. You made an eye-shaped CRAW piece. but let's make it sturdier and prettier. Lead your thread to an outside row. String size 11 seed beads in color B between the outside beads of your shape. The second color I'm using is an AB-coated crystal seed bead. Unfortunately, extra coatings on beads often result in smaller holes. This means that a size 10 needle doesn't always pass through easily, and I'd normally switch to a finer needle. But for this project I decided to skip that step. Instead, I simply avoid using beads with holes that are noticeably smaller and won't let the needle pass through. I've edited out those moments to keep the video shorter, but sometimes you'll see me struggling with a bead here and there trying to pull the needle through. Even so, I really love these beads. I just wanted to explain why beads from the same manufacturer don't always have consistent hole sizes. It's because of the extra coating that makes them so beautiful. It also slightly reduces the hole size. Lead your thread to the outside row from other side and repeat the step. This step will slightly tighten and straighten the cubes in the eye shape, giving it a more defined and polished appearance. It also makes the shape a little smaller but much more solid and sturdy. In addition to reinforcing the edges, this step adds texture and introduces a new color to the design. By filling in the edges with a new color, it's almost like giving the shape a beautiful contour. Even if the base was made in a single color, this outline effect creates depth and makes the design stand out more. And for the last step, lead your thread to the inside row. Go around the beads in the inside row, but leave your thread loose, don't pull it tight. This row should just straighten out the inner curve of the eye shape. Lead your thread to the other side and repeat the step. If you finish this step, you can put some double knots on your thread and cut it. You will need to do 3 more eye-shaped craw pieces for the pendant. I have 2 already, but I will come back when I finished all the 4 pieces. I am back. I made all the 4 eye shapes and now I will show you how to put together the pendant. Lead your thread to the corner of an outside row and step out from the corner bead. Pick up 1 bicone and go through the corner bead of the next piece. Repeat this step around. You can replace the 3mm bicone bead with any other 3mm bead. For example, you could use size 8 seed beads, Rizo beads, or 3mm fire polished beads. I chose to use bicone beads because I wanted to add a little sparkle to the center of the pendant. Reinforce the row by going through the beads again. Lead your thread to a corner from the other side of the pendant. String bicones between the corners on this side too. Reinforce the row by going through the beads again. Lead your thread to the second color B seed bead from a side of an eye shape. String one piece of color B seed bead and go through the second color B bead from the next eye shape. String one piece of color B seed bead and go through the second color B bead from the first eye shape. You need to make a circle with the beads like a side of a cube. Lead your thread to the other side of the pendant and make the circle with the beads there too. Lead your thread to the next gap between two eye shapes and repeat the step. You need to connect the shapes on both sides with the circles. I'm going to speed up this part of the video because it's a very simple step and I showed you twice how to connect the shapes with the circles. Don't forget that you can slow it down anytime. As I mentioned earlier in the video, this is a very simple shape. Once you've mastered how to create this eye shape, you're not limited to just making the pendant. You can easily make a matching pair of earrings by creating one single eye shape for each earring and attaching them to earring hooks with a jump ring. If you're feeling ambitious, you could even make a bracelet by linking multiple eye shapes together at the corners, then adding a clasp once you've reached your desired length. There are so many possibilities with this technique. I would love to see how you bring your own ideas to life. Feel free to share photos of your finished jewelry with me. I'd be so excited to see them. Back in 2013, when I first created this pendant, I placed it on a very long chain and added a small, sparkling beaded bead underneath to complete the look. This time, I envisioned a shorter version and designed it with a shorter chain in mind. But of course, you can always take inspiration from my original necklace and recreate the 2013 version. I'll include the link in the description if you'd like to see how I styled it back then. The pendant is almost done. We need to make a hanger for it. Lead your thread to a top corner of the pendant. I made a hanger with a strip of raw circles. String 3 pieces of the color B seed beads and go back in the corner bead to make a circle with the beads. Lead your thread to the second bead from your circle. And start another circle by stringing 3 seed beads and going back in that second bead. Repeat and make in total of 4 circles. Attach the strip to the corner bead from the other side of the pendant. String 1 seed bead and go through the corner bead. String another seed bead and go through the bead from the strip. The hanger is a little bit wonky, but with the next step it will be really nice and sturdy. Lead your thread to one side of the hanger. Step out from the first bead from that side. String color A seed beads between the side beads. You will need to string in total of 4 seed beads to reach the other side of the pendant. I know that is not so visible the beading of this step because of the crystal AB color of the hanger. But I try to zoom in as much as the beading allows me to try and show you the beading more. Repeat this step on the other side of the hanger. The hanger is finished. You can put some double knots on your thread and cut it. I usually put 3 or 4 double knots before I cut the thread. Put the necklace into the hanger and you are good to go. I think this pendant is really nice and it was not so complicated to bead it, don't you think? And that's the end of today's video. If you watched it and liked it, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you for spending time with me. See you next week.